Welcome to the Byte-Size Brief. Today we are putting Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., BFRG, that's BFRG, completely under the microscope. Let's get into it. Imagine spending $1 billion in 10 years building this state-of-the-art bridge, only to realize right at the very end that it doesn't actually connect to the other side of the river.
Right, which is a total disaster.
Exactly, and that is exactly what happens in modern drug discovery almost every single day. I mean, the failure rates are just staggering. But today, we are looking at a company claiming they can, map the other side of the river before a single drop of concrete is poured.
And if you were watching the markets on March 30th, 2026, you definitely felt this shockwave of that claim.
Oh, absolutely. We are talking about a microcap stock that just absolutely exploded out of nowhere. A massive 138% single-day surge. It's the kind of chart action that sends push notifications to every retail trader's phone, making you wonder if you just missed the boat on the next big thing.
Yeah, the volume on that session was certainly historic for the company. The stock gapped up aggressively in the pre-market and peaked at around $1.55 by the early afternoon.
Which is wild.
It is. And we constantly remind you, our listeners, price action is just the surface layer. A 138% surge is a reaction. It's not a fundamental reality.
Right.
So our mission today is to look past the visceral hype of that massive single-day rally. We are going to dig deep into the company's recent 10K SEC filings and objectively figure out if Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., ticker BFRG, represents a genuine technological breakthrough in the biopharma space, or, well, if it is just a highly speculative flash in the pan destined to fade.
Because to really understand why the stock went completely parabolic, we have to break down the headline that actually caused the eruption. On March 30th, they announced a commercial agreement with an undisclosed top 5 global pharmaceutical company.
A massive deal.
Huge. And the focus of this deal is finding novel drug targets for major depressive disorder, or MDD. And, when you think about the human cost of MDD, it is absolutely devastating.
Yeah, it really is.
We are talking about an illness where current treatments can take weeks to show any effect, and for a huge percentage of patients, the first 2 or 3 drugs they try just do not work at all.
Right. The unmet medical need there is staggering, which, translates directly to the market context. Major depressive disorder is not some niche therapeutic area.
Not at all.
It is currently an $8 billion market, and industry projections suggest it'll hit $11 billion by 2032. It affects over 300 million people globally.
Wow.
And the human brain is just incredibly complex. And the current treatment paradigm has a notoriously high failure rate because we are often just throwing chemical darts at a board in the dark.
Just guessing, basically.
Yeah, essentially. This new agreement grants the undisclosed pharma partner a 3-year exclusive option on any novel targets that Bullfrog AI identifies.
And they're doing this identification using their proprietary engine called BFAPE, which they actually licensed from Johns Hopkins University's Applied Physics Laboratory. They say it uses Causal AI and graph analytics to sift through biological data.
Yes, those are the key technologies.
Let's pause right there, though, because those buzzwords get thrown around a lot. What is the actual difference between Causal AI and, the standard machine learning we hear about every single day?
Well, think of basic machine learning as a pattern recognition machine. It looks for correlations. If you feed basic ML enough data, it might notice that people with gray hair have a higher rate of heart attacks.
Okay, so it correlates the two.
Right, correlates them. But obviously, gray hair does not cause a heart attack. Getting older causes both.
Makes sense.
In biology, correlation is incredibly misleading and leads to billions of dollars wasted on drugs that target the wrong thing.
Just chasing the gray hair.
Exactly. Causal AI attempts to map the actual cause and effect relationships within gene networks. It looks for the root biological mechanism driving the disease, not just a symptom that happens to show up at the same time.
Okay, and what about graph analytics? How does that fit in?
So graph analytics maps relationships in a network. Think of standard biology like looking at a single suspect in an interrogation room. You stare at one protein or one gene.
Just hyper-focused on one guy?
Right. Graph analytics is like looking at that suspect's entire cell phone record, who they called, who transferred the money, who they met with last Tuesday. It maps the whole web of connections.
Oh, wow.
In complex diseases like depression, the obvious single targets have largely been exhausted by older generations of drugs. You need a systemic network-level view to find the hidden biological drivers that traditional research completely misses.
So basically, it's kind of like a detective looking for hidden accomplices in a disease rather than just arresting the usual suspects.
That captures the mechanism perfectly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that network-level approach is what the top 5 pharma partner is paying for.
But wait, if the pharma partner is undisclosed, how do we know this isn't just a headline grabber? I mean, it's a bit mysterious. If I'm a retail investor looking at a massive spike, a nameless partner makes me nervous.
I get that, but in the biotech industry, non-disclosure agreements at this early discovery stage are actually standard operating procedure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, big pharma companies guard their early-stage research strategies fiercely because if a competitor knows they're looking at specific gene networks for depression, well, it tips their hand.
Oh, that makes sense.
The critical takeaway here is the third-party validation. We're looking at a company with a market cap of only around $7 million, securing a binding commercial contract with one of the 5 largest pharmaceutical companies on the planet.
Right.
That level of institutional validation for their core technology is undeniably significant.
Okay, so compared to last quarter, what actually moved the needle here? Because landing a top 5 pharma deal is huge, but how does this recent win stack up against their historical performance?
The contrast is quite stark, actually. Let's pull up the data from their 2025 annual report, the 10K they just filed for the fiscal year, ending December 31st, 2025.
Let's hear it.
It paints a picture of a company purely in research and development mode, burning cash with very little coming in the door. Their trailing 12-month revenue was a microscopic $117,000.
Yikes.
And against that tiny revenue, they posted a net loss of $6.5 million.
Wow. Okay, so 2025 was basically all spend, zero significant income, just, keeping the lights on and building the tech. But the narrative seems to have shifted dramatically in Q1 of 2026.
It definitely shifted from pure R&D to aggressive commercial execution. Beyond the top 5 pharma deal, they also launched a global CRO partnership with Signature Discovery.
Let's clarify that for everyone, a CRO is a contract research organization. Basically, they are the outsourced muscle that actually runs the clinical trials and laboratory work for big pharma companies.
Right. And based on the shareholder letter from the CEO, Vin Singh, that partnership is expected to bring in revenue all the way through 2028.
That's a solid runway.
It is. Signature's global sales team is now actively pitching Bullfrog's data networks to their own biopharma clients. On top of that, they rolled out their BFPRP data tool, and they successfully deployed their technology in Alecin Pharmaceuticals' Phase 3 pancreatic cancer trial.
Deploying in a Phase 3 trial feels like a massive leap. I mean, that is the final boss battle before a drug goes to the FDA for approval. What exactly is an AI company doing in a late-stage cancer trial?
They are doing what is called patient stratification.
Okay, what is that?
When a drug fails in Phase 3, it's often not because the drug doesn't work at all, but because it doesn't work for everyone. If you give a targeted cancer drug to 1,000 people, but only 200 have the specific genetic biomarker that responds to it, the overall trial data looks like a failure.
Ah, so it masks the success.
Exactly. Yeah. Patient stratification uses AI to group patients by their biological profiles, ensuring the drug is only given to the exact subgroup who will actually respond. It saves the trial.
That's incredible.
Yeah, using AI at that stage proves their tools can handle the complex, messy realities of late-stage clinical data. Now, when we look at the broader landscape of AI drug discovery, the integration timelines from early discovery to Phase 1 clinical trials traditionally take.
Right, but what does all that actually mean for Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., BFRG investors? We can talk about industry timelines all day, but the stock is moving right now.
It means everything when you look at their balance sheet. The industry timelines dictate how long a company has to survive before seeing a financial return.
Okay, lay it on me.
Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., BFRG, has a brutal cash burn rate of approximately $6.2 million annually. At the end of 2025, their cash reserve sat at just $2.3 million. So while these Q1 2026 commercial rollouts and partnerships are technically impressive, they are in an absolute race against the clock. They have to convert these deals into upfront milestone payments before their capital runs completely dry.
All right, let's take off our scientist hats for a second and put on our Wall Street hats. Because the science might be brilliant, but the market doesn't care about your graph analytics if your bank account is empty. We have to look at the existential threats hanging over the stock right now.
The most pressing threat is their standing with the Nasdaq exchange. According to their SEC filings, BFRG is currently facing severe delisting risks.
Really? Like getting kicked off the exchange?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're dealing with 2 separate deficiency notices. First, in August 2025, they were notified that they failed to meet the $2.5 million minimum stockholder equity requirement.
Okay, that's not great.
Then, on February 10th, 2026, they received a second notice because their bid price dropped below $1 for 30 consecutive business days. Nasdaq has given them a 180-day grace period, which expires on August 10th, 2026, to regain compliance.
Hold on. How does that actually affect Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., BFRG's stock price, for regular investors like me? What happens if they can't organically get the price back above $1 by August?
If organic buying pressure doesn't keep the stock above $1, well, the board has already secured shareholder approval to execute a reverse stock split. The approved ratio ranges from 1-for-2 to 1-for-15.
Okay, so think of a reverse split like a pizza. If you have an 8-slice pizza and you squish it together into 4 bigger slices, you still have the exact same amount of pizza.
Right. Mathematically, nothing changes.
It doesn't mathematically change the value of your investment, but in the microcap biotech sector, investors usually assume if you have to reverse split the pizza, the ingredients are probably going bad.
That sentiment is exactly the issue. Reverse splits shrink the float, the number of shares available to trade, but they're overwhelmingly viewed as a sign of financial weakness. They often trigger intense selling pressure immediately after they are executed.
And that selling pressure is exactly what some financial outlets are warning about right now. I was looking at a recent analysis from Invez published right after that 138% surge.
What do they say?
They were highly skeptical, pointing out that because this is a highly speculative, retail-driven run, there is a massive sell-the-news profit-taking risk. The spike was incredible to watch, but holding those gains is a completely different story when the fundamentals are still playing catch-up to the hype.
That volatility is deeply compounded by the fact that Bullfrog AI currently has zero official Wall Street analyst coverage.
Zero.
Zero. There are no major investment banks issuing buy, hold, or sell ratings or setting official price targets for BFRG. You might find algorithmic predictions online like StockScan throwing out a $6.28 average target or CoinCodex suggesting $2.17, but those are just automated mathematical models, not deep institutional analysis.
Just bots crunching numbers.
Exactly. Without institutional anchors to stabilize the stock, price discovery relies entirely on retail sentiment reacting to press releases. That inherently creates extreme, unpredictable price swings.
Okay, so the financials are dire, the cash runway is incredibly short, and the Nasdaq is aggressively knocking on the door with delisting threats. But if all of that is true, why are massive pharmaceutical companies and institutions like Johns Hopkins and global CROs like Signature still working with them? Big Pharma doesn't just hand out contracts out of pity. There has to be a real, tangible, underlying value in their intellectual property.
The value primarily centers around their ability to handle catastrophic data bottlenecks. Let's look at BFPRP, the new module we recently launched.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
In biomedical research, turning messy, unstructured, real-world biological data into structured, AI-ready datasets is incredibly labor-intensive. The company states that BFPRP reduces clinical data preparation time from months down to mere days.
So basically, it's kind of like having an AI sous chef that preps, chops, and portions all the ingredients perfectly in the back room, so the master chef, the multi-billion-dollar pharma company, can just walk in and start cooking the main course.
That analogy works perfectly. Big Pharma has the scale to cook the drugs. They can run the massive 10,000-person global trials, handle the complex manufacturing, and manage worldwide distribution.
They have all the money and infrastructure.
Right. But they're often bogged down by the grueling prep work of sorting through millions of isolated data points to find the right genetic targets and the right patient profiles. Bullfrog AI is selling the ultimate sous chef service.
But they aren't just a software company leasing out an algorithm. They actually have a drug pipeline of their own, which completely changes the risk-reward profile.
They do. They operate what they call a drug rescue model. They acquire rights to drugs that perhaps failed in late-stage trials for other companies.
Okay.
They bring those abandoned drugs in-house, run them through their AI to figure out exactly which specific patient subgroup will actually respond to the compound, and then they try to license them back out at a premium.
That's super smart.
Right now, their internal pipeline includes BF222 and BF223, which are targeted at glioblastoma.
And glioblastoma is a highly aggressive form of brain cancer. It is incredibly difficult to treat because of the blood-brain barrier, and it has notoriously poor survival rates.
Yeah.
The human need for a breakthrough there is just as urgent as depression.
And beyond oncology, they're also advancing BF114. This is an siRNA molecule showing real promise in treating obesity-related liver diseases like MSLD and MASH.
Let's break those down real quick. MASLD stands for metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, and MASH is the more severe form where the liver is actually inflamed and damaged.
Right.
Because of the global obesity epidemic, this is a massively growing problem, and siRNA small interfering RNA is basically a way to silence or turn off a specific disease-causing gene.
Correct. It is a highly targeted approach. And Bullfrog AI actually had their preclinical data for BF114 validated and published in the peer-reviewed journal Cell Reports last October.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It is. We are talking about entering a market projected to exceed $36 billion by 2030.
It's just wild to think about a $7 million company having AI technology that touches all these completely different diseases, brain cancer, liver disease, depression. But we do need to be realistic about what AI can actually achieve today. It feels like every company is slapping AI on their slide deck to boost their stock price.
That skepticism is required here.
Yeah.
This is where we must ground the entire conversation. AI does not skip clinical trials. You cannot just code a cure on a laptop.
Right.
You still have to put the physical drug into human patients, monitor them for years, and rigorously prove safety and efficacy to the FDA.
So what does the AI actually do then?
What AI does, and this is the true tangible value proposition that Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc, BFRG, is selling, is compress the early discovery phase. It takes a process that traditionally requires 3 to 4 years of trial and error laboratory work and shrinks it down to 13 to 18 months.
That's a massive time save.
It drastically improves the hit rate of finding the right target from day one, which severely reduces the chance of billion-dollar failures later in phase 2 or phase 3.
So they aren't selling a magic bullet. They are selling speed and a much higher probability of success at the starting line.
The technology is real. The scientific validation from Johns Hopkins, the publication in Cell Reports, and this new top 5 pharma partner all confirm the utility of their BFL lead platform. But superior technology does not automatically equate to a stable financial investment.
Which brings us to the ultimate tension of this entire deep dive. You have a company with legitimately powerful, third-party validated technology fighting against a brutally loud, ticking financial clock. If they have the tech to build the bridge, but run out of money halfway across the river, the bridge still fails.
Exactly. Look at the long-term upside, though. If that undisclosed top 5 pharma partner actually exercises its 3-year exclusive option on the major depressive disorder targets identified by BFLEAP, the resulting milestone payments and potential long-term royalties could fundamentally reprice the entire company overnight.
It would be huge.
It would validate their commercial model on a global scale.
But getting to that massive payday means surviving the current cash crunch tightrope. They have to stretch that remaining $2.3 million from the end of 2025. They have to carefully leverage their $10 million equity line without diluting their current shareholders into oblivion. And they have to somehow satisfy the Nasdaq to keep their listing alive until that August 2026 deadline.
It is the definition of a high-risk, high-reward scenario. It requires anyone looking at the stock to weigh the undeniable scientific momentum and commercial execution against the very real, very unforgiving balance sheet mathematics.
All right, listeners, what's your take on the future of Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc., BFRG? Are you bullish, bearish, or sitting on the fence? Let us know in the comments. See you next time on the Bite-Size Brief.